Lepo pozdravljeni. Welcome back. This panel will be in English, so I hope you all enjoyed your lunch, not too tired. Yeah, all good? Excellent. So over the past 2 days and previous panels, we heard a lot about the importance of water. Essentially, that's the purpose of this festival in itself. One of the slogans of the event is that water is life. I think we could all agree that without water, life is not possible. But we know many different forms of water, one of which is rainwater. We know that Earth is surrounded by 70% water, yet only 1% is made for consumption. And in light of global warming, climate change, and various other environmental impacts, these sources are our precious resource is coming increasingly under threat. So how we use water, how we use our tap water, underground water sources, and rainwater is becoming increasingly more important. One of the issues is, of course, we use our clean drinking water in our toilets to flush our toilets. We use it for washing our cars. Which at the moment, where at least in Slovenia, where these sources are abundant, is not the problem, but in future it could become. So one of the aims of this panel is how is rainwater important in light of climate change, and what is its potential in Slovenia and elsewhere. So without further ado, I would like our panelists today to come on stage. First, Ms. Nuša Pavlinjek from company Roto, Ms. Veronika Matuszná, hope I pronounced that right, from the Ministry of Environment, Czech Republic, Mr. Miha Lampret from GIC Gradnje, Dr. Mitja Bricelj from the Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning, and Mr. Iztok Rozman from the Chamber of Commerce of Industry of Slovenia. Welcome. So let me start with a kind of simple question to get things going. What is individually, for you personally, for each one of you, what does sustainability mean, and how do you incorporate that in your place of work? Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it works.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. Hello to everybody, and thank you for invitation on this great event. So my name is Nuša Pavlinjek. I'm coming from company Roto. The company is, the headquarters is in Slovenia, but we work worldwide in 65 countries all over the world. And one of our main business is also water. So we have different solutions for rainwater, for wastewater, to treat from the industry, from municipalities, and also private houses. And our life in our company is strongly connected with self-sufficiency in water and how to purify it. But generation that is growing now, they are already very aware of this topic, and it's also important for our development to invest and to start to talk every day about water and the importance of water. And I would say not only water, but also by energy. We see how important it is to start to think about electrical cars. I'm driving electrical cars since 2015, and it's very easy to switch from the standard cars to electrical cars. So I think it's also very easy to switch from water that is coming from the pipeline to the rainwater. So let's talk today how to do it.
Thank you.
So hello, everybody, once more. It will be our big task to keep you awake after a great lunch. So I think me and my colleagues will do our best. And yeah, topic is very, I think, topic is helping us, because let's use rainwater. That sounds, it could sound amazing. And as I mentioned earlier today, in the Czech Republic, we would say like, why to do it? But to be honest, in the past, when I remember my grandmother, they used to do it. It was their daily, basically, life. When it started to rain, they would put out every, let's say, tool that could capture the water. Later on, we have built some reservoirs, so we have forgot that this has been done, and now we are coming to it back. So we are just coming back to roots. And to your question, what the sustainability means to me personally, it's the only possible way. It's also kind of a cooperation and tolerance, because to be sustainable, it means to be tolerant and to give the opportunity to others, to our followers. And with regards to our job at the ministry, that's basically our everyday task, to try to spread the information that the way forward is to go in a sustainable way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your invitation, and of course, hello to everybody. I'm here in the name of a construction company, gradnje, and construction business itself is probably not very clean, but it's changing from day to day, and we are a part of that change. And when we are talking about sustainability in comparison, or in comparison with construction, for us that means producing concrete in state-of-the-art concrete plants with great cleaning systems, using very efficient cars, using electrical cars wherever possible, and so on. And what's very important, we really have a let's say a tough stance on how to manage the waste in construction business. And regarding the topic, which is the topic of this panel, we will get to that in the debate that will follow. It's not just up to us, it's up to the planners, up to the investors, and together we can use the rainwater really efficiently with just small steps.
Thank you. If I may, just simplify it, when sustainability and water resources, it's for me the main issue that we somehow ask ourselves, or how and from where the water is coming in very concrete environment where we are. And this awareness should be also in front of us when we are acting, whatever, free time, recreation, or economic activities connected with of agriculture, industry, whatever business, and when and how this water is going out from our home, from our, let's say, working place, our cars on the end of the day. This is sustainability, or sustainable approach, or mainly is about awareness and responsibility.
Thank you. Firstly, I must explain, I'm coming from the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia, but more exactly within this chamber is a Chamber of Public Utilities. So my line of work is drinking water supply and management of urban wastewater and treatment of wastewater. So for our chamber, sustainability means, or we are working things towards sustainability, that drinking water supply and urban wastewater treatment and management will be sustainable now and for the future. So briefly that.
Okay, thank you. Lovely to always hear what sustainability means to an individual themselves and in the context of their work environment, because sometimes we often hear maybe different explanations or meanings. So that's why, to get things started, I pose that question. But maybe for myself personally, and maybe someone else and people following this on the stream, how, we've heard rainwater collection is thousands of years old. But obviously it's not the same approach the same way today. But how do we even go about capturing and utilizing the rainwater? Maybe from Ms. Pavlinjek, from your perspective, or from perspective of a construction company, how is this physically done? How advanced is this technology and efficient as well?
Like I said before, we have really tough restrictions how to plan or design our buildings, projects, and how to execute them. So we can be proud of it because we are building very good sewage systems. We are taking care of we are taking care that none of the wastewater or dirty water comes into the ground. So we are collecting all this rainwater and of course sewage water from the buildings. We manage it to that it runs through different channels, and from this point on, when you do all this, it's really a small step that you then just channelize, and it's channelize the rainwater into some sort of a reservoir, and then just a tiny step from that point on that you pump it into the building itself and use it, let's say, for the toilets, for washing machines, and so on. So we have done so much, and I think that's maybe a step or two, and every building can be water self-sufficient for a very small difference in budget.
Maybe I would add one great example we did together with gradnje. So in Brnik, there is the biggest Slovenian airport. They completed the second terminal last year. Yeah, last year. And the construction partner was gradnje. We supplied shafts for the rainwater. And then, of course, in Corona times, you cannot visit customer in the companies. So we had to visit customer on the building site. And once we arrived there, it was, I think, 2 weeks before the new year. We started to discuss with the investor how maybe to capture also rain and reuse it, because on the airport you have really a lot of collecting area, platforms and parking lots, and also big roof. So they decided in the time of building the terminal to add additional tanks. And now if you will fly from Ljubljana airport on the toilet, you can wash your hands with the rainwater. So it's a great example. Also, industry is now supporting that rainwater is used and reused in the industry, in different factories, and also in the households. Czech Republic is a great example when also the government supports. Maybe you can explain us how such investments, because if you invest in the house, which value is about 200,000 euro, the investment in a rainwater system is about 1%. So it really makes sense to invest and to be self-sufficient.
That's excellent. To follow up, so would you say that it's more a question of environmental consciousness, or is it a purely financial, or a combination of both for a company or, for example, for a private individual to invest in rainwater collection?
I would say both. We exhibited in Dubai, Expo Dubai. So they have many issues with the water, but awareness is very low.
Yeah.
Here in Europe, we have a lot of water, but awareness is high. And we have to use this opportunity and really make this way of life to reuse water and to collect rainwater popular, and also promote this to investors, to designers of the houses, and to public.
So how, maybe a question from Mr. Rozman, how do we go about increasing the interest in these kinds of investments? What kind of approach would you say is from, let's say, from a government perspective, from an or general institutional perspective, what would increase rainwater utilization in Slovenia?
The legislation in Slovenia already, how would I say, already tries to that the people would not let rainwater into the public sewage systems, that they would use it or so. So from the perspective of public utilities, of course, there are different challenges of this. Because the rainwater, regarding the climate change and so on, it causes problem in the public sewage, it causes overflows, it causes environmental pollution at the end. So we are very keen to take steps to reduce the quantity of rainwater in the public sewage system, and the reuse of rainwater is one of the steps to do that. Of course, when this approach will be broader or more implemented, we will have different challenges, of course, in the field of drinking water supply, and also in the wastewater management, I would say.
Yeah, Mr. Bricelj.
If I may, just to maybe remember all of us that collecting the rainwater as it was in the past, let's say, the way how to organize water supply on the, let's say, on site, it's maybe now more than ever before an issue. To think how to enhance, let's say, water security, what it's also on the end energy security, or to contribute to energy security. Don't forget that the water supply systems are huge users of energy, and many other, let's say, weak points are in such and centralized systems. Many weak points in case of pollution, of case of lack of energy, and other, let's say, accidents or emergency situation. All this together brings us again to the water security, which is taking into account this climate change facts. Unfortunately, more and more should be in front of us. And this is one of the technical measures where we can enhance water security on site. don't forget this. It's it's security. It's about question of security. It's not just water. It's security and water health issue, and of course biodiversity. With such rain collection water, we can contribute to minimize pressure and impacts to the water environment. All these are, let's say, positive sides of rain, let's say, harvesting, whatever. Okay, for the households, don't forget also the dimension for this small scale, what was in the past and still is somewhere, food production. All this is also again about security, food security. And now if climate change and war, what we are facing right now in Europe, what measure we will, of course, perform to be safer on site and less depend on the supplier from, I don't know where, national or transboundary or even from other continents. I believe the lesson is here. The acting is waiting for us. Thank you.
That's excellent. And maybe to follow with Ms. Matuszná, how is the approach in Czech Republic? I recall you mentioned you have the government does offer certain subsidies for these kinds of systems. To what extent or how long was the process of implementation? And do you see any kind of good and bad practices in that program?
Yes, we have both.
So, is it on?
Maybe now?
Yeah.
Again, I'm coming back to 2015 because probably we have been discussing this already. It's good to be proactive than retroactive, but in reality, we had to wait for 2015 to be really starting to think about the water scarcity in Czech Republic. And what was, let's say, good about it, that we were able to use this momentum to really put things moving forward. So we prepared drought strategies, we prepared a lot of paperwork, but also we were able to manage this subsidiary program that was called, well, we call it in English raindrop, but in Czech Republic it's also the same word as for the earthworm that actually shows after the rain. But I'll use the raindrop, that's more, that's nicer. So we have prepared based on the evaluation of the areas that were really water stressed and vulnerable. For those people in there, we prepared the subsidy that basically we would cover up to 50% of costs for making or establishing the infrastructures for rainwater collecting. And you could have three possibilities. You would collect the rainwater and use it for watering your garden, basically the crop production. You could, in the second option, use it for watering the garden and flushing the toilets. And the third option was that you would use also somehow reclaimed wastewater, somehow treated in your household. What we've learned that the interest was extremely high in version number 1, because it's easy, you buy a tank. I recommend the underground tank because the water remains about the same quality longer when it's underground with no sun and temperature rising, which is also the issues that we came to. You can collect the water and store it, but you collect it when it rains and then you need it when it's hot. And it's also the time when the quality of water starts to decline like immediately. So you need also more advanced techniques because we now have the knowledge. We had about just 1% interest in the third option because still the price in the Czech Republic for the water is not that high that it would actually make also economic sense to because when you want to use a reclaimed water or a treated wastewater, you need to have a separate pipelines, right? You have to basically secure that the reclaimed water will not meet with your drinking water. That could also cause some diseases and health problems. So this is not so, let's say, interesting for households. This program was financed from the state budget, and it is now a part of, it still continues. We've modified it a bit, and we have, it's a program that is called a Green Light for Savings, that is basically focused on installation of houses, lowering the energetic, what's called it, it's some kind of quota that basically to make your houses more environmentally friendly and to save for heating systems, electricity and stuff. And now also for, you can do some measures to save water. Then we prepared, we call it a large raindrop program for municipalities and state agencies. And this is to implement measures in an open space in urban areas. So to exchange the non-permeable surfaces for permeable ones, to install the tanks for rainwater, to have infiltration zones. And here we realized that we really needed to do a huge outreach effort. From the beginning, there was basically no interest because mayors and people have their different, tasks than to deal with what maybe will be the problem. So we really needed to put a lot of effort in outreach, and then now we have, and we also extended the possible applicants, and now we also have a project in this area, and we plan to double the allocation for this because we really see that this is a big problem with the climate change, that we have a lot of those floods in the cities actually. So we really need to manage the water at one side, and on the other side of the droughts. So this is what is happening, and we hope that also green roofs, also something that we see as a part of this management of water in cities, in urban areas, because this is where we kind of see the problem.
So if I understood correctly, you have different programs for municipalities and households, and 3 different versions in the government subsidize about 50% for those 3 versions.
The first program that we call small raindrop, it's for households only, and this is 50%. And then we have the large one that covers up to 85%. Because, when you are a public agency or something, you need to manage your budget in a different way. So,
of course, okay. And how is, maybe a question for Mr. Bricelj, how is, or other members, how is this situation in Slovenia? Is something like this feasible? Has it all been implemented, or the idea been put forth in the past? Or any, yeah.
The colleagues will go in details. In theory, and taking into account the law and regulation, of course, it's option which is welcome for the implementation of the citizens, and it sometimes also, as far as I know, also stimulated to some level from the eco fund. This is one point, and in general, as I said, it would be very, very much welcome in the spirit of our yesterday and today discussion that all sectors would somehow recognize that, let's say, the collecting of water is benefit for all. And not just for, I don't know, households per se, but for society, as I said, for the enhanced security of each, let's say, quarter of, let's say, town or village or quarter of village. This all together brings the safer future for next generation. And this is what we can do taking into account all these trends which we are listening from the monitoring and negative, let's say, balance of the underground water and surface water bodies. This is feasible, it's not costly, and this is something what I believe it's strong message. And on the other hand, don't forget the dimension that if we use the rainwater or let's say also a lower amount of water which we are used with opening the tap and it's running for hours for whatever jacuzzis, pools and so on, we are reducing our footprint and pressure and impacts to the ecosystems. This is extremely important. It's we are safer then also because we are taking care about our ecosystem services and goods, which we are essentially need for our, let's say, well-being, for the climate resilience and all other food and production and water supply and so on. All this is multiplication, such an effort, and this should be recognized as, I believe, culture which our generation should promote and should demonstrate. Thank you.
I think that's a great point that you made, in particular about being responsible when it comes to water use in general. I think, when we speak about utilizing different sources and technological solution, it always starts similar with, waste management. It's always first reduce the amount of waste, reduce the amount of water use if it's unnecessary and so forth. So that was a great point. But would you say that it's the current eco fund would benefit, or let's say the utilization of rainwater would benefit from increased funding through the eco fund, or are there any other kind of measures that would make that push for companies, individuals or municipalities to invest in that?
Well, if I can, as I cannot a lot to add what Mitja said, but another push is maybe already a few years in the legislation is that the pricing of wastewater management must be divided on the pricing for the rainwater, which goes into the sewage, and urban wastewater. And if you are not putting the rainwater into the sewage, then you are not paying that price. So that can be also one push to do such things in the households.
So it's more of a kind of a legislative push that would legislative changes that would make that push towards higher utilization.
Yes.
Okay.
And they are not fully implemented in all the utilities, but we're going in that way. Of course, then it's the problem when some utilities implemented this pricing system, then the media started to talking about the tax on rain. What can you do?
Yes, that's something that we've also met when we were, because when you use the rainwater for flushing your toilet, you basically then put the rainwater into this public sewage system. So we actually were not, it was not like, let's collect the harvest the rainwater and everybody was happy. No, there was a group of people that were particularly not happy because their the pipelines were, they are, let's say, designed for a certain amount of water, and now you add basically a rainwater, which is then prohibited by law, that you are not allowed to do it, that you should now, in what's newly built, because we also have the old systems that are combined, but now it's prohibited. You can only build like separated pipelines for wastewater and for rainwater. So basically this is also what was one of the problems, that they said that you are currently breaking the law yourself as a ministry. So we need to clarify that. And also what I wanted to say, that in our law, we have that you have to, with a newly built building, you have to manage the rainwater in the property somehow. And we have the system, let's say the hierarchy, that it should be managed in the system, in the property, it should be reused. And if it is not possible, the very last solution is to basically build a pipeline and put it into the system. So I just wanted to mention that, yeah, it is not always, let's harvest the rainwater, but it's not always that easy as it may seem.
I would just add, I think we have to stimulate this also. And Czech Republic, and we have people from France here, which started this similar project also this year in April or May. Also Slovakia, we are present on these markets, and we know the demand for the rainwater harvesting is increasing enormous once the country has a budget to support these investments. So I hope in 1 year when we will sit here together again, Slovenia will also have some funds for this.
So would you say, maybe a question for any one of you, do you think for a case in Slovenia, it's a mentality issue? So the fact that the policymakers, for example, are not as aware of the benefits of rainwater utilization, and for that reason, not sufficient funds are allocated through these funds? Or is it something else? We've heard legislative issues and lack of financing, but is it mainly the mentality that's preventing the market to kind of expand?
We have good practice by wastewater. So municipalities stimulated the investment in the small wastewater treatment plants, and we see that things are moving very fast here. So I think also by the rainwater, we can make the same case. It's not mentality, it's just to push from all sides.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's about, like it was mentioned before, it's about raising awareness from all sides, each stakeholders, from construction companies to policymakers to products manufacturers, and that's how you make that push.
I'm sorry to make a comment on Slovenian debate, but I think what really helped us was that people basically felt the need for it. And if there is a demand, then you really can spin the wheel much easier. Sitting on the shore of such a beautiful lake and say, we need to collect the rainwater because there is not enough. A regular person will go and say, hey, we can pump it from the lake. But if you experience that you really, turn on the tap and there is nothing coming on, then you really start to think.
But we don't want to get there.
That's true, and that's why you need to listen and speak to up. And but this is really, it's difficult to persuade somebody that this is needed unless it's really needed. But it's a really clever way to go. It's a smart way to go, to be proactive again and to say, hey, this happened to our neighbors. Let's think about it. Let's at least be prepared, because the tank for rainwater, you can have it in your garden like for ages and not use it, if you're lucky. But then when the time comes and you need it, hey, I just found a treasure in my garden and it's a tank for rainwater.
It's both about responsibility for future generations and also meeting the need of the current ones. So it's kind of combining the two, which is sometimes might be difficult. But how strong is the current market for these systems in general in Slovenia?
That's probably not a question for me, because we are more in the
implementation,
big projects business. I just wanted to add one more thing, because probably we all agree that the younger generations are more and more aware what the sustainable way of life is. And one smaller push would be also if they would be well informed about how much this investment costs when you are let's say at the start of a project, let's say at the start of the building of your own house, you wouldn't even notice really. If you plan it in a correct way, and this in combination with the awareness that especially young people have, this would be a win-win situation, of course. So this is back to the latest topic.
If I may, this is the way, definitely. What happened in the last 50 years, let's say, is that we forgot that our grandparents were very much connected with such an, let's say, systems with huge infrastructure, which is still on the ground. Unfortunately, half of this is destroyed or even somehow damaged with, I don't know, in some worst cases also dammed by waste and so on. I'm talking about the water wheels. And because why? Because the villages or towns got, of course, very rich water supply from somewhere and forget all these local resources and who cares about. But now I'm afraid that we are coming close to our limits, what we can feel with these projections. And now we are starting thinking back on our, let's say, parents, grandmothers, whatever, how they survived. And I do have here the book from the Slovenian karst region, which is very special, sensitive area. This is the landscape around Trieste on Slovenian side, where they developed its very dry areas, and they developed very special kind of collecting water for generation. And with rainwater, they perform in one, let's say, excellent piece of settlements called Staniel, with, of course, knowledge generated in this local community with architects, water supply system, and even water gardens, which are excellent 100 years old without any water supply in the landscape where it's water scarcity. But it's about the approach which somehow recognize the local specifics and then design appropriate water collecting system and distribution. And this is nothing new, by the way. We are late, let's say, or we forget 100 years of our history. And this is now what we should really, with new, let's say, materials, with IT, with software and hardware, we can be much more efficient to respect what? Don't forget, local conditions. Because without that, respecting local conditions, this is the only way that we somehow would be efficient somehow to survive, taking into account the global changes. With what? With adaptation on the local level. And this is water resources mainly. Thank you.
Yeah. Are there, since we're running short on time, are there any questions from the audience for our panelists? Yes. Might come
in. Firstly, great conversation in regards to rainwater harvesting. This may have been covered because I just popped out the room. However, the question is, here in Slovenia, is there actual legislation in regards to new builds, if it's housing communities, commercial buildings, to where rainwater harvesting technologies, filtration, safe reuse of the water is required to allow the build or the construction to start? Is that something that's already here, that is required for the architects to design, the planners to improve, to build? Is that something that you're aware of, or is that happening at the moment?
Well, if I understood the question right, as I'm aware, there is no legal requirements to do that, but there is also not, it's not prohibited, so it can be done.
If I may, this is maybe you know, when a light turns on, this eco fund started with promoting energy efficient buildings. So you got money for basically building better houses from the energy point of view. And what happened after a few years? This let's say niveau went up, and what was funded by Eco Fund, let's say 5 years ago, became new law. And this really should be something similar should happen with the water, especially let's say with the rainwater. We are now somehow funding it, but probably if we take small steps and put it in our legislation, you wouldn't face big backlash. You should just take small steps. So this is really a good question, and probably a lot of us are asking ourselves why we don't do that, because we are good at building sewage systems and collecting this water. It's just a matter of small step, but it has to be done.
Thank you. Anything else? Oh, we do. Okay. Yes. Sure. Maybe we can read it. Yeah. Or you can post it if it's easier for you. It's fine. So. Okay.
All right. So we have a comment from Barbara on the Zoom. The first comment part is, let me find it, that which you briefly mentioned that they're adding that in Slovenia, rainwater use is due to awareness, as we do not have obligatory rainwater use, only not to put it to the sewage system that you briefly mentioned. And most have infiltration, which is good for GW recharge, groundwater recharge, I assume. And that there are no incentives for collecting rainwater and its use. Even worse it with grey water use, which should be water source in water scarce areas, cost in summer due to low water conditions and increased water use. That was the first one. And the second one is that additionally, EcoFund does not co-fund rainwater harvesting. It only gives loan with better interest, which is useless and no incentive. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for the question. Anyone, the members care to comment, or was I think it was just a general, yeah.
Yes, this is really true. And I think that there are many funds. We just before this panel, we discussed it's 1 to 2% of investments in the rainwater harvesting or the complete system. So you need a tank. The costs are about 1,000 euro, let's say for a family house in the surface of 200 square meters. And then you need the pump and the filter. So the complete investment is about 2,000 to 3,000 euro, including installation. So it's really small investment comparing with the investment of in the house. And I hope we can give some initiative to EcoSclat, EcoFund to work on this in the future.
Thank you. Since we're short on time, I think maybe to conclude, each you've already mentioned what would be needed as kind of to spur investments into a rainwater collection system, but maybe in 20 seconds or 30 seconds or less, one key recommendation that you would have for one stakeholder in particular or in general that needs to be done, so that next year when we discuss here, we'll see maybe one of recommendations already implemented.
it's what just was said, that it's good to be prepared. And when you're building a new house, when you buy a new mobile phone, you want the latest model, right? So now to build a house without a rainwater harvesting system would be the old-fashioned model. So why not to take this approach to show the good cases, good examples? And yeah, you have to start with enthusiasts who will go for it because the legislation does not say so. But maybe then the legislation will follow. Unfortunately, sometimes it's like this. Sometimes the legislation comes first, and sometimes it comes when it sees that the good practice is in place. So share, showcase, and hope for the best.
I think that I already mentioned what I think that the best way would be to do it. It's all about information, spreading the good news, spreading the news about the costs of such investments. Also, our let's say viewer who asked the question or who said that it's useless that Eco Fund just lends you money. I must say that I agree. It's not useless, but it's not a good way to use it. So this would be the next step to, even though it's not very costly, it also helps if someone co-funds it. So I think that it wouldn't be such a big issue for the Eco Fund, since it has done a very or a marvelous job when speaking about energy efficiency. And once you do this, you have all these young people, all these young families, and they will grow into responsible managers. And once they come into positions when they can decide, they will already have their minds made up. And even though in the businesses it doesn't, you don't get revenue in the next minute, but we know what happens to energy, and for sure something similar will be happening to the water. So let's try to inform everybody. Thank you.
I very much agree with previous speaker, with Veronika and you. It should be a proactive, not reactive approach if we want to be responsible. And this is now what and how all messages from the public and from here in the audience and from the emails or reactions are, I would say, of course, very relevant. And yeah, this is reality, very much sectoral, very much fragmented, and we should do our best from the bottom up as users and institutions from top down to demonstrate the change of what? That we try to do our best to cooperate on institutional level and on the neighborhood for the solutions. And this is for me the message where we should put to our ministers and to local mayors or our neighbors to do our best. This is the way to go. And yeah, let's report about the change trends even next year, and the situation definitely not is going to be ideal, but the direction is important.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe I would say what already our Czech colleague said before. We must have in mind that the things are not so simple as to build a container, harvest rainwater and use it. Regarding my field of work, drinking water supply and wastewater management, when this rainwater harvesting and using will become broader implemented in Slovenia, it will have some impacts also on drinking water supply and also on wastewater management. And all incentives, also legislative incentives, must be really thought through and have all the impacts in mind when we put it through. So.
Oh, thank you so much. I think a round of applause to our panelists is in order. I think it was a wonderful discussion. So thank you. This concludes our panel, but I would like you guys to remain seated just for a few minutes longer. We have a honorable guest speaker who wasn't able to attend yesterday, Ms. Mariam Kham, Executive Director at Community Development Foundation from Pakistan. She will give a brief address via Zoom. So, amazing.
Yes, thank you so much and good evening to all. Good afternoon. This is Mariam Khan, Executive Director. Hello.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Excellent, very well.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is Mariam Khan. Good evening from my side. Greetings from Pakistan. I'm the Executive Director of Community Development Foundation, and I'm the global. I'm the co-founder and the Vice President of Global Women's Development Network, and this network is working with the women economic empowerment. We are working with the 50+ countries, and the overall focus of our work is expanding women's link to each other and also the women's role in the labor market. And we are also engaged the key stakeholders to the government and the communities. So we are dealing in 10 different sectors, and all these sectors are interlinked with the women economic empowerment. So the target of this organization and this network is serving to 500 million women across the globe. And all of they are with the background of the businesses, entrepreneurs. And this year in 2022, with the bigger conference, this is called IWDC 22. This is International and Indigenous Women's Day Conference. And we introduced another sector in this conference, which is women in water business also. So this organization is the first organization here from Pakistan or even from so many countries. So we are going to introduce, with the collaboration of Bled Water Festival, that we are introducing our entrepreneurs with the water entrepreneurship program. So through this program, we are trying to build capacity of our entrepreneurs in the water business. And also we are facilitating them to adopt this business like other businesses as their own entrepreneurship program. So I'm really glad to be the partner with Bled Water Festival, and thanks to Marco to consider us, to consider our network, to be your partner. And also we are learning a lot from your side as well. And also we are also saying welcome to your platform in IWDC 23, in which we are going to measure our impact of overall working and also inviting women and experts and stakeholders in the water business as well. Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Maybe I think this was a good example about how not just local collaboration, but also when we're talking about water and sustainable water management, we also have to reach across borders to Czech Republic, to England, to Romania, Bulgaria, to Pakistan, because everyone has something to contribute. So whereas in Slovenia we're rich enough of this resource, other parts of the world might not be. So I think we can all learn from each other, and this Bled Water Festival is a good platform to do so and to carry the stories forward. So I think this concludes the official part of the Bled Water Festival. So I thank you again on my behalf as well for attending, and I hope to see all of you here next year as well. So thank you again.